Alright, so I'm going to be showing how to replace the screen on this 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro model A2338. So to do this repair, we're going to need a suction cup or some tape. We're going to use some thread locker. I like to use red, but you can use the blue, that's fine. We're also going to need a screwdriver with a Pentalobe 0.8 or P2 screwdriver. We'll also need a Pentalobe 1.2 or P5 screwdriver. We're going to be using that one first. We're also going to need a T3 or Torx 3, T5 or Torx 5, and a T8 or Torx 8. If I forgot anything, I'll bring it up when I do the repair. But yeah, for now, that's what I remember off the top of my head. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is use the Pentalobe 1.2 or P5 screwdriver and remove all the screws from the bottom. You want to keep these screws in order, well, all the screws in order, because they can be different size, shape, and lengths. The way I do that is I put the flat side like that on my desk in the pattern I remove them. So you can see we got this kind of U shape. We're just going to put them in that pattern. 2 towards the back here, and then you got 4 in the front. Alright. So if this video helps you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade or repair their devices as well. If it helps you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to my channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. These are customer computer repairs, but as I continue to put out more and more videos, I actually get less and less repair jobs. So I've actually noticed that my actual repairs amount are going down. So please consider helping me out, even if it's only like $1 or something, or even if it's like a few cents or something. Every little bit helps. All right, so there we go. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to rotate this, flip this over, okay, and we're going to use a suction cup. Again, you can use a piece of tape to do this. If you use tape, what you want to do is you basically have the tape go like meet at 2 spots like this, and then in the middle come up. You can use like 1 piece of tape, or you can just have 2 pieces of tape and do that, whatever works for you. Alright, so I did in another video, basically you just fold the tape in half and then have the ends taped down. But basically all we need to do is use that to pull the cover up slightly. So here you can see there's a little gap here now that I pulled that up. I get my fingernails in there. If you don't like using your fingernails, you can use plastic pry tools or something. But again, fingernails work really well for this. So I get my fingernails all the way down the side here. And then I use my thumb to push down on the palm rest while I pull up on this cover with my other nails. Just like that. All right, we're going to work our way over to the other side and basically do the same exact thing. Just go over down like that, push with your thumb down, and then pull up like this. All right, once you get that, the cover actually is slightly open like this, but we need to actually pull this cover down because they have clips that go up in this spot back here over here. All right, on both sides. So we're gonna grab this like that. Be careful. I like to use my fingernails along this edge so that way when it slides, my fingers don't get cut by the sharp edge there. So you just have your fingernails go there, grab with your palm, then push down with your finger here and keep your other fingers wrapped over this way. You can use multiple fingers if you want, whatever works for you. But I use it like this, so that way when I push down like this, all right, sometimes the cover is really hard to remove. There you go. It did take quite a bit of force to do that. And now you can see the cover is separated from the top there. So this side, once you get one side down, the other side will be a lot easier. But if for some reason you can't get this side out, you can go on to this side. It's going to be pretty difficult as well. But once you get one side already all the way like down like that, this side will be a lot easier. You can just get your hand in there, grab like that, and then use your thumb to push on the rest, the screen, and the palm rest assembly. And then you can just push the cover just like this, all right, and it should pop out. There we go. So we got the bottom cover off. It is a little dusty in here, not too bad, but either way I'm going to clean it up. I just use a toothbrush, loosen up the dust, and then I use an electric air blower to blow all the loose dust off. All right, so I'm going to do that real quick and I'll be back. All right, I'm back. So we cleaned up the inside. All right, so there you go. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the battery. So let's zoom in a bit. All right, then we're going to peel off this plastic cover here. Just slowly peel it up. You don't want to yank it up real fast because if you do, you can actually tear the little foam pads. It's not really a risky thing to do. Just peel it up slowly so that way you can put it back later. Okay, so there we go. We're going to switch over to the T5 or Torx 5 screwdriver. Okay. All right, and then what we're gonna do, let's go ahead and disconnect this battery cable here. So this battery cable, you don't wanna damage it. If you do, your battery's not gonna work. So this plastic piece we're gonna use, it's just a pull tab. It's not really part of the cable. We're gonna flip the latch here on the connector. I just used my fingernail. As you can see, I flipped that latch up. Once you flip that latch up, you can grab the cable and you can kind of wiggle it and pull it back, just like that. Then we're gonna hold this cable out of the way and we're gonna undo this T5 or Torx 5 screw and move it out of the way. So again, you want to be careful not to mix up the screws. It's very important that you put back the same screw where you got it from. All right, so now that we removed that screw, you can see this metal tab is actually still touching the battery. So what we're going to do, we're going to get underneath and pull it up slightly so that way it remains disconnected. That's very important. Okay, next thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and zoom out a bit. We're going to open up the computer and then we're going to press and hold the power button for 15 seconds. This drains the power from the board and all the other components on there and makes it a lot safer to work on. It doesn't make it to where you can't damage it at all, so don't be like just throwing stuff around the board, but it makes it a lot safer to where there's a lot less risk. A lot of people ask me if they have to. I mean, it's 15 seconds, just do it. It makes it a lot easier and safer to work on. All right. So now we're going to continue since we have the T5 screwdriver still. Let's go ahead and remove the remaining T5 screws for the job. If you want to do this a little bit easier, you can do the T5 screws after. You can actually do all the little T3 screws first, but I don't like to keep switching back and forth screwdrivers, so I'm going to just remove the T5 screws right now. All right, so let's go ahead and remove the 4 screws on the back here holding the LCD control board in place. All right, so we're going to remove the 4 screws here. Okay, just like this. All right, and the 4th one here. All right, there we go. Let's get that screw out. Okay, so now that we got all of those out, you can see this board is loose, so you want to be a little bit careful when you go to remove the other components. All right, so next thing we're going to do, because there's this plastic here, we're going to have to slowly peel this up. Okay, again, you want to be careful with this, but we're going to slowly peel this up. I might have to use my little plastic scrapey tool for this, but let's see. All right, I'm trying with my fingernail, but it might be easier with this little scrapey tool. So let me switch to that. I didn't mention that, but I'm going to use this little plastic tool here to help remove the adhesive here. So I'm just going to scrape at it or poke at it with the pointy end. Okay, and this is just so I can release the adhesive here. Technically, you could just tear it off and it's fine, but I like to slowly peel it up so that way I could hopefully reuse this adhesive and just stick it back down. Not like it's important to have this adhesive here. Apple likes to just put this stuff, I guess, so they know that people worked on it. But again, it's not really important. It doesn't prevent the computer from working or anything if you don't use it and peel it off slowly. You can just tear this whole thing off and never put it back on and you'd be perfectly fine. But there we go. So we got this foam thing up here. All right, so if you want, you can peel the whole thing off. I'm gonna just leave it there. And then we're gonna go ahead and, oh, that antenna already came out really easily on its own. All right, actually, okay, we do have to peel this whole thing off. That sucks. All right, so let's go ahead and peel this whole thing off because they hid one of the antennas in between 2 of these adhesive foam pieces. So I'm just slowly picking at the foam and there we go, we got that out. And we're gonna slowly scrape at this other side too. Okay, there we go. So here you can see this is what it looks like underneath. You got a triangle on those 2 little other ones. Set that aside. All right, and you can see this one already popped up on its own, but usually what I do is I use my fingernails at the tail and then I just pull it straight up and it pops out just like that. All right, one more T5 or Torx 5 screw right there. I'm gonna undo that. Okay, just like that, and set that aside. Again, keep all the screws in order. They are different size, shape, and lengths. Okay, now we're going to switch over to the T3 or Torx 3 screwdriver. Let me see what the replacement screen, if it comes with the little metal tabs, and it does. So here's the replacement screen. Let me zoom out a bit here. We're gonna actually open this up and, okay, let's see here. We got all this tape on here, so I'm gonna just peel this up, get this out of the bag. There we go. Okay, so we'll take this out. Set the bag aside. Wow, they put a lot of like packaging on here. This is some weird packaging. They use like some sticky stuff wrapped all over. So let's see if we can get it out. Okay, so they encased this whole thing in some sticky pack wrap. I don't know what this stuff is called. Alright, let's go ahead and peel that all off. Okay. Now we're going to peel this whole thing out here. Man, this is going to be kind of annoying. This is annoying to remove. So let's grab that and peel this. Okay. Go, got that side. Let's go ahead and keep working our way. I don't know why they use this. It's so difficult to peel this stuff off. Okay, there we go. Okay, and let's go ahead. Good, it doesn't stick to the connectors. All right, and let's go ahead and continue peeling this stuff up. All right, there we go. We'll set that stuff aside. All right, then they got all this stuff taped on here, so we're gonna peel that off. Designed by Apple in California. Okay, let's peel this off. You want to hold the connector down so you don't put unnecessary stress on it. All right, there we go. Set that aside. So here we go. We got the replacement screen. Usually I like to open up these hinges, but we'll get there when we get there. So for now, we're just opening it just to look at it. So the one thing I was checking is if these metal things are here. So on some replacement screens, they don't come with these metal pieces, so you'll have to transfer them over. This one has those, so I don't need to transfer it over, so we're just gonna skip that part. Right, so let me put this screen aside here. All right, now let's go ahead and continue with the disassembly. Okay, so as I was saying, we switched over to the T3 or Torx 3 screwdriver, and we're gonna work our way from left to right. Okay, so we're gonna start with this little hinge cover here. Let me zoom in a bit more. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit more. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and remove this hinge cover first. Again, keep all the screws in order. They are different size, shape, and lengths. If you mix them up, you can damage your computer. So we're gonna remove that screw, and we're gonna remove this screw. All right. Now that we got those two out, just lift this up slightly and then pull it out, just like that. All right, we're gonna work our way over to the right here. And let's go ahead and remove the two screws down here, holding this little black spring-loaded part in place. All right, so we'll remove those two. Again, if your screen doesn't come with the little metal thing here, you'll wanna take those out as well. All right, and then we're gonna take this screw out for the other side. All right. Again, keep all these screws in order. They are different size, shape, and lengths. It's very important. All right. Now we're going to disconnect the screws holding the, this one's kind of wobbly. Let me see if a T4 will work better. You kind of want to make sure that the screw isn't too wobbly in the socket. So this one will actually work better with a T4, I think. Normally you would do everything with T3, but this screw spot here, for some reason it works better with a T4. So I switched to a T4 for that. All right, let's see if this one's the same. Yep. All right, so the two screws that hold this, what do you call, this little cover for the LCD or LVDS connector, use T4. Or if your screwdriver isn't as precise, you want to check, make sure that the screw isn't too wobbly. So if I try and use the T4 here, it won't work. All right, so we have to use the T3 again, and we're going to remove the two screws down here. So Apple's being kind of sneaky with those. I think they know that their screens have been having a lot of issues, and they've probably been changing the size of that screw there to make it more likely for people to damage them. All right, so we're going to remove these 2 screws now. And once you remove those 2 screws, you can remove this metal plate as well. There are some little springy looking stuff underneath, so keep that in mind. All right. There we go. Now we're going to disconnect the LCD Lvds connector. So I get my fingernail under there, and then while I'm kind of holding it up, I just push this down. That's what I found is the easiest way to disconnect that. And then you can see the cables just like that. You want to be careful not to bend this. If you damage this cable, you will have to take the entire motherboard out because the other side of this cable is held underneath with screws just like this one. All right, so we got all of that out. Let's go ahead now, and take out the 2 screws from this black spring-loaded part as well. Okay, and these screws are actually a lot longer, so yeah. All right, and then we'll get this one out. I don't know why they make them so long. They don't really need to be anywhere near that long. I think it's more just so if you mix stuff up, you damage your computer. Apple just likes doing stuff like that. Okay, so now we got all of those screws out for the screen connectors. We're gonna remove the 2 screws covering this hinge bracket as well, or the hinge. Okay, so remove those 2 screws. Now that we got those 2 screws out, we're going to lift the plastic bracket up and then pull it back just like the other one and set that aside. All right, next thing we're going to do is remove the wireless antenna here. So let's zoom out a bit so you can kind of see the whole thing. So I don't know if it'll be too far away if I show the whole thing, but we're going to do one side at a time. Okay, so we're going to switch now over to the the P2 or Pentalobe 0.8. These are basically the same as the iPhone screws on the bottom, and we're going to remove these screws over here. All right, so there's 2 sets of this, so let's zoom in actually so you can just see those first. All right, so we're just going to remove all these screws here. Again, keep all these screws in order. Even though they are the same, I like to put back the same one where I got it. So I keep them in the exact same order that I remove them. I don't put them in a little bucket or a little container. I do them all in the same exact order that I remove them. Okay. Just like this. All right, we're going to go over to this side and do the same thing. That. All right, now let's go ahead and zoom out and I'll show you how to remove the wireless antenna bar. So when you get to this point, what you're going to do, there's these air vents here on the back of the wireless antennas. So I use that to kind of lift that up, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and we just pull it up just like that. All right, now that we loosen the centerpiece here, we're just going to guide this out from the little hole down there. We're going to rotate this so that the antenna wires can go through. Okay, and just help guide them through. So there we go. There's the wireless antenna bar. And if you're wondering how this holds itself into place, you can see here, there's these little dimples there. So those go into a slot, and that grips into that slot there. All right. So we're almost there. We got everything removed. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the T8 or Torx 8 screwdriver, and we're going to remove the hinge screws. So let's zoom out further so you can kind of see over the edge of my desk. All right, we're not going to need any of this stuff anymore. Well, we won't need the scrapey tool here. But anyways, let's go ahead and open the screen all the way. Okay, so you want to open this completely, not just 90 degrees. You want it opened all the way. All right, once you do that, we're gonna take out these 6 screws, the hinge screws there. All right. And again, keep them all in order. Okay, Apple uses some kind of yellow thread locker. I'm guessing that's also so they know that if you put different color thread locker that you worked on it. I don't know. Excuse me. All right, so now that we got all 6 of those screws out, we're gonna let the screen fall down about 90 degrees. Again, we are just resting this on our desk and the screen is hanging over. Then you just lift this up carefully. And there we go, we got the old screen out. We're gonna now get the replacement screen. Okay, so with the replacement screen here, again, you do want to make sure these hinges are open all the way. And the way you do that is you just take your T8 screwdriver, get that in the screw, and then rotate that back. All right, and you want to be careful not to rotate it too far. So when it stops, just stop. You don't need to keep like pulling on it. So just like that. There we go. All right, so now we got the hinges open. Next, what you want to do, you want to hold these cables up and out of the way. All right, so just like that, get your hands underneath and hold them up. And then we're going to slowly lower the screen into place. Just like this. All right, you might have to move it around to get it to fall in. And then make sure the LCD LVDS cable ends up on top. Now we're going to just hold this all the way back like before. I just used my legs to prop it up. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put in the hinge screws here. So I'm going to loosely fit the middle screws first here. All right, so that one and that one. Again, I'm just loosely fitting it right now. We're not tightening it down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close the screen, but you want to do this very slowly and carefully, okay? Just in case if you feel it getting caught on anything or scraping, you don't want to keep trying to close it, all right? So there we go. Now let's go ahead and put back all the rest of the hinge screws. So let's zoom in. Okay, and then we're going to just put back the hinge screws. But, well, actually, let's loosen this first. I forgot to mention. Sometimes the casing and the screen don't line up properly. So what you want to do is, zoom out, okay? What you want to do is loosen the screws a little so that way it can move, and then you can actually slide it. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but the gap, you can actually move it to where it's not centered. So you want to make sure that all the edges here are lined up, all right, all the way around. Front, back, side, side, all right. Once you get that all lined up, then you can go ahead and tighten these screws down. All right. There we go. And then the other screws, we're going to add the thread locker. We are going to add the thread locker to those screws as well, but we want to get the other screws in place just to make sure that they hold the hinges in place. Oops. I squeezed that and a bit of the thread locker stuff came out. So let me clean that up before it causes any issues. We don't want that to have any problems. Okay. Clean that stuff up. I'm going to have to use some rubbing alcohol to completely clean it. Right, as you can see, it's leaving behind a stain. Okay, so let's make sure to clean that up properly using some isopropyl alcohol. Clean that and dry it up. There we go. All right. Get a little bit more, even though it looks good, but just want to make sure there's no residue at all of that stuff on the board. Try it up. Okay. There we go, all clean. All right, so normally people won't have that issue, I hope. Okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and get the screws now and then add the red thread locker onto this. That's kind of part of the problem when I'm trying to show what I'm doing. It makes it to where I have to keep it in camera. All right, but anyways, Let's go ahead and add the thread locker on there. Of course, now that I actually go to use it, it clogs itself. Okay, there we go. So we just put a very tiny bit on there, not even like a big drop. All right. And then we get that screw into there. All right, tighten that down. And we're just gonna do this for all 6 of those screws. All right, so I'm gonna get the thread locker stuff on the other screw. Go, tighten that one down. Once you get the 2 around it with the thread locker, you can go ahead and take this screw back out and then add the thread locker to that as well. Okay. Tighten that into place. And this is so those screws don't come loose. If these screws come loose, sometimes people end up breaking their hinges. So it's a good idea to add the thread locker just to hold it in place. Okay. That screw in. All right, next one. That screw in. All right, and last one, take that screw out. All right, and get the thread locker on there as well. There we go. All right. There we go. So we got all the T8 or Torx 8 screws in. We're done with that. So we'll set that aside. Let's go ahead now and finish with all the rest. So we'll flip this back over. All right, next thing we're going to do is put the wireless antenna board back into place. Okay, can be a little bit tricky with these cables, so if you want, you can actually straighten them out a little bit to make it a little bit easier. You could always bend them back later. All right, so now we're just going to thread them through here. Let me actually zoom out so you can see how I kind of position the wireless antenna board. So we're just going to go like this, get the antennas through there. Okay, and then we're going to just slowly rotate it to get it to thread through there properly. If it doesn't go through, like here it's getting kind of caught, you might have to use some tool, or you can kind of twist it a little here to make a bend the other way and then rotate it back just like that. And there we go. All right, so then you want to make sure these all line up properly. Okay, once you get that, then you're going to push down on the antenna board here, make sure it locks into place, and you'll know because if you try and lift this, it doesn't go anywhere. All right, you can also hear that click. I don't know if you heard it. But anyways, let's go ahead and zoom in now, and we're going to actually reconnect the antenna cables first. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so just get the antennas bent back and lined up. All right, once you get it lined up, you'll know, because if you try and move it, as you can see, it's staying on top of that connector, then you can go ahead and push it down. Same thing with the other one. There's some dust there. Okay. All right, get this lined up. You want to make sure it's completely lined up, because if you try and push it down, these cables, these connectors are very fragile. All right, so here you go. You can see it doesn't move anywhere. Click it down. There we go. All right, so now let's go ahead and put back all the wireless antenna screws. Okay. If you want, you can actually go straight to plugging in this cable first and then plugging in the battery and everything and testing it if you're not 100% sure that the screen is working okay. I'm okay doing the additional work just to make it safer for when I first turn it on, because when these things move around, it's a little bit riskier. But if you're just testing it real quick, then you don't have to put all the screws back in. Just keep that in mind, all right? Okay, so now we're going to switch back to the Pentalobe 0.8 or P2 screwdriver, and we're just going to put back these wireless antenna screws. So I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit clearer again. And I like to do the 2 outer screws first, all right? So I'm going to hold this board in place, and then we're going to put this one screw here. Once we get that one in, we're going to get the other screw on the other side over here, and we're going to put that one in as well. That way the wireless antenna board or wireless antenna holds itself in place, and then I can go ahead and just grab all the rest of the screws and tighten them down without worrying about it being positioned properly. Okay, just like that. Just like that. Just like that. And the last one on this side. Okay, good. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this side, doing the outer screws first. Okay, again, holding this into place, and then tighten it down. All right. Same thing, hold it in place, tighten that down. All right, then we can go ahead and put back the rest of the screws. These screws are so tiny. All right. You want to be very careful with these screws. You don't want to drop or lose any of them inside the computer. If you do, make sure that you don't leave it in there, because you can damage your computer, or the customer can damage the computer if it's in there rolling around and you turn it on. All right, there we go. We got all those screws back in. Next thing we're going to do, actually we can put back these hinge screws things. So we're done with the Pentalobe 0.8 or P2 screwdriver. We're going to now switch back to the T3 or Torx 3 screwdriver. Okay, and we're going to put this little plastic bracket back in place, put it in at that angle like that, and then we're going to drop it down. Why does it not want to seat properly? Make sure it goes in properly. For some reason it wants to like stay sticking up. There we go. All right, and then we're going to take those two screws and put those back in. All right. I'm going to loosely fit it first, just to make sure both screws are lined up properly. Okay, tighten that into place. And there we go. Now we can go ahead and tighten them both down. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to the other side and do the same thing. All right, get that screw, or get the plastic bracket into place. All right, then we're going to get this screw in and the other screw in. All right, just like that, and then we're going to tighten it down. Good. Okay, so now that we got those brackets in place, let's go ahead and get these screws over here into place. So we have this, again, the spring-loaded thing. It's a little bit tricky because you have to rotate it. So I use my screwdriver to get in there, and then I use that to kind of lift this back out. And then you can rotate this. All right, and then you have to hold this into place. The spring, actually, you can see it through the bottom here, and that's how you know it's in the right spot. All right, get the screw. Loosely fit it first. Make sure that you can get both screws in. Okay, get the other one, and then get that screw in as well. Okay. It's going in a little bit crooked, so make sure it goes in the right way. There we go. And then tighten that down. Again, you want to keep holding that in place just to make sure it doesn't go crooked or anything. All right, get that one in as well. Perfect. All right, we're gonna go over to the side now. We're gonna actually do these two last. Let's go ahead and get this one back in as well. Same thing, flip the spring over. Make sure to hold it in place. And slowly put that screw back in. There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and get this one in as well. There we go, and tighten that down. Make sure you're holding this side in and tighten that down. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to reconnect this cable here. So make sure this is all lined up, and then get this lined up. A lot of times you have to push this cable slightly down this way. I use my fingernail to kind of pull it over while I kind of push that in, and then make sure it clicks into place. There we go. Felt both sides click. Good. All right. To make this easier to work on, we're actually going to put back the T5, our Torx 5 screws first. So let's go ahead and switch back over to the T5 or Torx 5 screwdriver. And we're going to put back the 4 screws holding this board into place. Okay, make sure that they are going in properly. Again, I'm loosely fitting it first just to make sure everything is lined up. And I usually also turn them backwards to feel it click into place before tightening it down. All right, there we go. In. All right, and now that we got all 4 in, we can go ahead and tighten it down. I also like to check that the gold or whatever colored ring is centered with the screw if possible. Okay, tighten those screws in, tighten that screw in. There we go. Since we're using the T5 screwdriver, let's go ahead and put back this screw as well. Oh, what's that? All right, and then we can actually go ahead and put back this little cover as well. So to get that, just line up this with the one antenna there, and then we're going to slowly drop this into place and get the diagonal lined up with that piece there. Then go ahead and stick it down. All right, you can actually see this antenna sticking out, but yeah. All right. I don't know if it should be a little bit further down to completely hide that antenna. Let's actually hide the antenna completely. So let's go ahead and scrape this thing back up, because I don't think usually you can see that antenna sticking out. Okay, so we're just going to move it so that it hides that antenna. Let's go ahead and get this lined up. And we're going to have it like this. Okay, I don't remember, but there we go. I mean, now this part's exposed, but I think that's okay. All right, we're done with the little plastic pick tool, so I'm going to set that aside. All right, next thing, let's go ahead and put back the little T4, sorry, not T4. We'll do the T3 screws for this little bracket. Okay. And then we're going to switch over to the T4 screwdriver and put back the screws for the LCD or LVDS connector. All right, there we go. Again, I'm just loosely fitting it first. Make sure it gets aligned properly. And then we'll get the other screw in. There we go. We'll go ahead and tighten that all the way down. Tighten this all the way down. All right, we're done with the T3 or Torx 3 screwdriver. Let's go ahead and switch back over to the T4 or Torx 4 screwdriver now and put that little bracket on top of the connector. If you're wondering, for the metal plates that I didn't have to remove these, you'll usually do those metal plates last, because you want to make sure these cables are set where they're supposed to be, and then when you put this on top, it will actually push down the excess cable that's bowed out. All right, so let's go ahead and tighten this down. There we go. So normally if I do these metal plates, I would do it after I get these T5 screws in and after I get this spring-loaded part in. Then you can go ahead and put these metal plates. You don't have to do these. You can do this before that or after. It doesn't really matter. All right, so we're done with the T4 screwdriver. We're going to switch back to the T5, and we're going to now reconnect the battery. So let's go back over here to this metal tab that we pulled up slightly. And we're going to get the T5 screwdriver in there, line it up, and then just tighten that screw down. Okay, now that we got that screw tightened down, we're going to go ahead and put this back in. This one is a little tricky to put back, but just keep working at it and you'll eventually get it. You want to pull this back so you can see, and then get that connector into place. All right, again, this is a very tricky one to do. It's harder to show what you do. Normally I would just use this tab like that and then pull it in, but then you couldn't really see, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, once you do that, you can just pull this cable in as far as you can. If you somehow lose this plastic piece that's on top, you can actually use a piece of tape to just stick on there and use it to pull it over. All right, you don't really need this black plastic tab on top. So there we go. Now that we got that lined up, slide your finger over the top to latch that back down, and that will lock the cable in place so you can't pull it out. All right, stick this piece back on top. And then don't forget this piece as well. All right. We're going to line up this little circle with the sticker, or with the screw there. All right. And then we're just going to flip it over. And then make sure that this part lines up with that as well. And there we go. Stick that down. Okay. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. Now we just have to put the bottom cover back on. So it's basically the reverse of how we took it out. Okay, so we're gonna have it up at the angle just like before when we pulled it out, except this time now we're pushing it in. So keep it up at that angle. Get the side edge here lined up. It's hard to see this, but let's see here. I might have to zoom out more so you can see more of what I'm doing. Oops, you don't need to see my whole leg. All right, so what you're gonna do, make sure that's lined up. Make sure this is pushed down. You don't have to make it have those click sounds. It just made that because I had it a little too far up to where it's almost already clipping. So now you hold this down and then you slide that up. All right, slide that into place, and that will latch those things underneath there. Then you want to check this. Of course, it's not going to be lined up because we have to do the other side. So make sure, same thing, hold this down and then slide that up. Okay, just like that. And then when you do that, it's still going to have the little gap there, so you're going to have to, again, push this in all the way. Double check, make sure everything's lined up. This one I wasn't able to push it in all the way, so let me try again. There we go. And then we're going to push here one more time just to make sure. Right, double check, everything looks lined up and good. And then you can go ahead and snap everything back in. All right, and now we're going to just put the Pentalobe 1.2 or P5 screws back in. After doing all of this, you want to do a PRAM and SMC reset if possible. I think the 2020 MacBook Pros, they took out the SMC reset function, but we can still do the PRAM reset, I think. So let's go ahead and do that once we get all these screws back in. And then you want to test the camera. You want to test the automatic brightness adjustment and all those kinds of things. All right, so we're just going to get everything reassembled now. If this video helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share my channel with others so that they can also learn how to upgrade and repair their devices. If this video helped you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps, and again, helps me continue to make these videos for a living. But anyways, let's get to the PRAM and SMC reset. Flip this over. All right, open this up. Let's get the charger cable and plug this in. All right, so first thing we want to do now, I feel the trackpad clicking. That's a good sign, and you can actually see the Apple logos on, so that's good. All right, so I'm holding the option key, but it booted too fast. I think the 2020 model, the option key doesn't boot to the boot options. I think now they changed it to where you just keep holding the power button, and then it will go to the recovery mode options. I'm gonna confirm that in a bit, but let's wait for it to boot right now. It might be booting to the password recovery mode because the customer screen was so bad they probably kept turning it off and on. Or not, it booted to the regular screen. So it looks like it's good. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna shut it down. All right. I'm gonna see if it does boot to the recovery mode by holding the power button. So now that it's shut down, at least I think it's shut down, I'm going to press and hold the power button, and I'm just going to keep holding it and holding it. All right. Just a little stuff on here. Oh yeah, so I'm holding this and it says continue holding for startup options. So on these new 2020 MacBook Pros, they added this option where it does it that way. Let me zoom in a bit here. Oops, not that much. And there you go. Now it's booting to recovery options. I don't know if it's going to show username stuff, so I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to clean the screen a little bit just because it came kind of gross. But yeah. All right, so I'm just using a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You don't want to use too much. All right, you don't want to make the screen get like dripping and have water get into the circuit boards or anything. So there we go. Clean that up. Okay, now they have the boot option for booting from a hard drive or the boot options, okay? So if you want to do that. But anyways, we don't need to do that. I'm going to shut it down. Actually, let's see what's in the boot options. But yeah, I don't think there's the SMC reset here. So it's doing OS recovery. I don't want it to show username stuff if it's going to show that. So I'm going to hold this out of the way. All right, battery's already 100% because I left it charging the entire time before I got the part. So let's see here. Okay, it does show the username stuff, so we're gonna leave that. Let's see if it does the SMC reset. So usually you do Control Option Shift on the left side and then the power button. And nope, the computer's still on, so it didn't do the SMC reset. We're gonna try Pram Reset, so we're gonna restart the computer and then immediately Command Option PNR. All right, if the Pram Reset works, you'll actually see the screen flash off and then it'll come back on and then it'll flash off. So right now the screen's on. Did they remove the Pram Reset too? It looks like they did. All right, so I guess in the new 2020 MacBook Pros, they got rid of the Pram Reset and SMC Reset. Maybe there's another way to do it and I don't know. But yeah, check the camera, check the automatic brightness and things like that. Make sure that your touch bar works after you log in. I'm gonna have to ask the customer for their password. But other than that, that's all there is to it. I'm going to try one more time shutting down and then powering it on to see if I can do the Pram Reset. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Again, hopefully this video helped you guys. And I'll see you on the next one. I'm going to try Pram Reset one more time. Yeah, it looks like they got rid of that, so I don't know how you would do Pram and SMC reset anymore. But, yep, thanks for watching. See you all later. Let's drop this. Bye.